Welcome to Under the Bleachers. Chris Ransom, William Yanish. That noise you're hearing in the background, that is my brand new Arctic air conditioner that I got at Walmart. Yes, it is very amazing. Helps me sleep better. And yeah,
Nice, man. Out here in Colorado, it's about 40, 45 degrees right now, but I envy you.
yeah, but when the snow goes away, it's always 70 degrees or higher. It really pisses me off because I can't sleep unless it's under 70 degrees. It has to be under 70 degrees or I can't sleep.
Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
Yeah, no, I never even really use a blanket. I just keep it nice about 69 degrees in my house for whatever that's
That's
worth.
why I got Arctic air, because the air conditioners at the apartment, they go 70 degrees or higher for cool whenever the snow goes away, and I just can't have that.
Yeah.
Especially when it gets 90 degrees, 98 degrees, 105 degrees in the summer. I can't have that outside.
I grew up out here splitting kindling to start fires in the wood stove, and a fan. I had no idea what an air conditioner was. I was a little bit more up in the mountains. Now I'm down in the desert, but one of these days I won't be in this state anymore.
Yep.
That'll be a good day. I'll stop terrorizing them. Maybe they'll stop terrorizing me. Anyway, man. Figure waiting on Brandice. She's probably tearing it up at practice,
people are
for the
messaging
Atlanta
me
Rage.
about the group mock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Oren said he's going to call shortly. Is he going to call into the Under the Bleachers stream as like a guest? Like, what the heck is Oren? That's fine if he wants to come on, but like,
that's cool.
I'm just kind of surprised.
Huh. Yeah. Like I said, Brandice is probably tearing it up. Her season's about to start for the Atlanta Rage down there. They lost one game last year, and it was a championship.
Yeah, they're on a mission.
Yeah, for sure. Brandice Bell, the baller. But anyway, figured we'd talk some pro days.
Yeah, let's talk some pro days. I have not really watched any pro days. I've been more focused on recoding the site. So why don't you tell me what's going on with the pro days, and then I'll get into some of these picks in Tony Mario's 7-round mock draft. He has Kyron Lacey, Joey's favorite receiver with the off-the-field problems, as Mr. Irrelevant. So that's his Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah. That's not a player you want to drop to the Chiefs, because if he gets his stuff together, that's going to be a steal. Just saying.
For sure. But no, man, Tedero McMillan, he, for his size, 6'4", 219, he's got one hell of a catch radius. He ended up running pretty average 4.4 40. And, that wasn't definitely not overwhelming compared to these days, when most receivers are, any of the elite ones are running 4.3s and such. But, there was a day that Larry Fitzgerald, I think he ran like 4.62 or something like that.
I think that was Bolden, but may have been Fitzgerald too.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
And Restrepo had a 4.83. I thought he had a 4.64, but it turned out he had a 4.83 after he redid his 40. So
I heard some rumors, should I say, about maybe a hamstring that was bugging him. Because, he doesn't play that slow. That's for damn sure. And, he's only, 5'10", 209. But he also, on a short shuttle, he ran 4.21, which was pretty good. And, besides that, I don't think, people the media is going to, feel that he slipped more than the NFL, because they watch the film and his film is good. And he, football speed and 40 speed, hamstring or not, are two completely different things, And that's like Josh Downs. I think he ran a 4.42 40. And I mean, as soon as the ball was snapped, he has a step on everyone. And, that's one reason I had him in fantasy football, and, I drafted him in the second round. And every time Flacco was playing, a quarterback that was halfway accurate, he was doing great. But, as soon as Anthony Richardson, I'm not sure he knows how to read a defense. But, and kind of not very accurate downfield, he'd come in and Downs just, wasn't even there. But besides that, I mean, there were some things like Cam Scattaboo, he ran like a 4.65 40, but he also had a 39 and a half vertical jump. And just the way, he breaks tackles. I mean, that guy is absolutely, a beast. Mondre Stevenson, I mean, he ran worse than that. I think he ran like 4.68 or something like that. It was some number that was just unbelievable,
Yep. I'm going to go through a few of the picks here in Tony Mario's mock draft because it's all over the place. It's all over the place. Cam Ward's going number 1. That's not a shocker, but the Browns get Travis Hunter at 2. The Giants take Mason Graham at 3. The Giants have Dex Lawrence, the best nose tackle in the league. Unless they're drafting Graham to play a 5 technique role, I can't see the Giants picking him at 3. Unless they're strictly drafting him for a 5 technique role, I don't think he's going to be the pick unless he moves to 5 technique. And at his size, I just feel like he's a nose tackle or he's a defensive tackle. There's no either or. I think he's like 317, 337. I think that's too big for a 5 technique, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a really weird pick right there. Like you were saying, man.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be a good pick. It'd be a great pick. Mason Graham would be a great addition for the Giants defense. But I just don't think he's going to play 5 technique. I think he's either going to play defensive tackle or nose tackle at his size. And
unless they're thinking he's like J.J. Watt or something, and I don't think that's exactly the case here.
Noches, DJ Davidson, Mason Graham is better than both of them. He would start at either 5 technique spot if the Giants wanted to move him to 5 technique, but I don't think they're going to pick him.
For real.
Will Campbell goes 4th. I can see that. I agree with that. Here's an interesting pick. Number 5, Tetroya McMillan, Arizona receiver, the Jaguars. That is a very interesting pick because it's all over the place. Like, you wouldn't expect that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has McMillan in the top 5. I think Tony's probably mocked McMillan. I've seen a few mocks with McMillan to the Patriots at the start of free agency, but those have kind of cooled off. Those have kind of died down, cooled off since the Patriots got Diggs last week.
Yeah, that's definitely. I saw some early, in the draft cycle where they're talking about McMillan like that, but not recently. And it's kind of, it's even possible. It is possible.
Patriots
that Hunter drops out of the top 5.
Raiders get Will Johnson. I actually like that. The Jets get Abdul Carter. They've got 2 first-round edge rushers and Will McDonald the 4th, who took the right end job from Jermaine Johnson the 2nd. And now, if the Jets have a plan to trade Jermaine Johnson the 2nd on draft night, I could see Abdul Carter at 7, but that is legitimately the only scenario where I could see Carter going to the Jets at 7. I do think it's a great value at that point. No question about it. That is a great value pick. I agree with Tony 100%. That's a great value pick. But I don't know if the Jets would pull the trigger on Carter with the 2 first-round edge rushers. They do run a 43 defense, and that's not going to change under Aaron Glenn, but I just don't know if the Jets would pull the trigger on Carter at 7. I like the pick. I like the value of the pick. I just don't know if the Jets would pull the trigger. James Pierce goes to the Panthers. Mikael Williams to the Saints. Bears get Ashton Genty. Niners get Matthew Golden. Do not like that. I think his floor. I think his floor is higher than Pearsall's, but his ceiling is lower. So to take a player like that at 11, whose ceiling is lower than Pearsall's, if you're going to draft a receiver, you want a receiver with a higher ceiling than Pearsall.
Yeah, I definitely don't like that pick because just what you're saying, it doesn't feel like
his floor might
that's
be
the spot
higher,
to
but I
draft a
think
wide
his ceiling's
receiver, man.
lower than Pearsall's.
Yeah. And I mean, Pearsall, I mean, he had really good, tail of the tape. But, I mean, his film just wasn't quite up to where that was. I mean, I like the kid and I feel he's a great player, but I feel that they can upgrade. I just don't think 11 is the spot to upgrade.
Armand Membu to the Cowboys at 12. I don't know if he would go as a right guard or a right tackle, but with Zach Martin recently retiring, I would think Membu would go to the Cowboys as a right guard to replace Martin. He probably could play right tackle too, though. But they got Terrence Steele at right tackle. They extended him. Dolphins get Kelvin Banks. He play left tackle or right tackle. Or you can move him inside to guard. That's also an option. Colts get Tyler Warren. Falcons, Shamar Stewart. Cardinals get Kenneth Grant at nose tackle. Bengals get Mike Green at defensive end to compete with Miles Murphy. Seahawks get Jalen Walker. Donovan Izaraku's a Buccaneer at edge rusher, 34 outside linebacker. And then the Broncos get Jihad Campbell as a 34 outside linebacker. So that's the top 20. And then Shedeur Sanders goes to Pittsburgh at 21. And look, I do think Tony's scenario is accurate. If the Browns, Raiders, and Jets pass on Shedeur, he is going to drop in the draft. I agree with Tony Mario 1,000% on that. Yep. That if all three of those teams pass on him, he's going to drop in the draft. However, if he's there at 20, the Browns are going to trade up for him just to screw the Steelers out of Sanders. They're probably going to give up a second. They're probably going to give up 33 and another second to Denver. And they're going to come up and screw Pittsburgh out of Shedeur because I just don't see the Browns allowing Shedeur Sanders to go to the Steelers. If he's still there at 20, they're going to move up and get him.
Like we were talking before the show, listening to Colin Cowherd talk about Jalen Milroe and how the Steelers want special and that, they would likely take him over Shedeur. And I agree with Shedeur dropping. And like I said, so far I have one quarterback left. Well, two quarterbacks left. We'll say Tyler Shugg and Quinn Ewers to do their finals on. But my top three is looking. It starts with Milroe.
What people don't seem to realize is that the gap. Joey and I are going to disagree on this strongly, but the gap between Shedeur Sanders and Quinn Ewers is smaller than the gap between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't think people have comprehended that yet. A lot of people, I've got Cam Ward at 7, Shedeur Sanders at 58, Quinn Ewers at 65, Jackson Dart at 69 or 67 to 69, somewhere in there, and I've got Jalen Milroe at 81. So that's my top 5 QBs. The gap between Cam Ward and Shedeur is bigger than the gap between any of those 3 QBs and Shedeur.
I can definitely agree with that. I'm not so much of a Shedeur fan. He reads defenses.
I think his ceiling's high, but his floor is very low. I think his floor is about as low as Alex Smith's was during his rookie year in San Francisco.
He has a beautiful arm, though. That's the thing, And I mean, just the accuracy, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just everything else that's going on with him is why I don't think he's that high. And why I might have once.
And is he going to grow? Is he going to be somebody who can mold into that guy like Alex Smith was? That's the thing with Shedeur Sanders, because I think his floor is low, might be lower than Alex Smith's floor coming out of Utah. And Smith had 1 touchdown, 11 interceptions as a rookie with San Francisco, but he eventually put it together.
Yeah, those were some years.
Yep.
Let me tell you.
Nick Scorton to the Chargers, Barrett to the Packers, Starks to the Vikings, Luther Burden to the Texans, Missouri receiver Josh Simmons to the Rams, Rebel to the Ravens, Jack Sawyer to the Lions, Colston Loveland to the Commanders, Nick Eamon-Wari to the Bills, Gray Zabel to the Chiefs, and Tyler Booker to the Eagles. Tyler Booker's in my top 15. If you allow him to drop all the way to the Eagles at 32 for Howie Roseman to just snab, you have messed up. You have messed up
That's
really,
been happening
really
with
badly.
the Eagles, though. That's why they won the Super Bowl, because the players been falling in their laps. It's been one of those things, you know, and just some of the questions that come out, and it's
but this is a really good Browns draft that Tony Mario put together. He has Travis Hunter at 2, Omarion Hampton at 33, and Jalen Milroe at 67.
That's actually
Andrew Berry. You might want to hire Tony Mario as one of your scouts. This is probably the best Browns mock I've seen, just from a value standpoint. Maybe not from a need standpoint, but from a value standpoint, I think this is probably the best Browns mock I've seen.
Yeah, I don't have a comparison for Hunter. There obviously isn't one, but as for Omarion Hampton, he's a Breece Hall type of back, and that makes complete sense to take him there. You know, he is definitely a franchise running back, and you all know how I feel about Milroe. So
it's interesting though. Walter Nolan to the Patriots, Derek Harmon, Max Hairston, Egbuka to the Titans, Carson Schlesinger to the Bears, Alec Aomer to the Cardinals, Xavier Watts to the Dolphins, Caleb Johnson to the Broncos. I know you're pretty stoked about that. Niners get Benjamin Morrison in round 2. That's a much better. I would much rather have Benjamin Morrison in round 1 than Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden's got a great floor, but I think I don't see him becoming anything more than a high-end starter, number 3 or number 2. I don't think he's a Pro Bowl receiver like some in the draft community do. I don't think his ceiling's that high.
Yeah. Going back to that, that's one thing I space. Going back to that Matthew Golden at number 11 thing, you know, if there was a receiver to take there, I and you probably both feel it should be Luther Burden. I mean, he is.
Yeah, it would be Burden or Egbuka or I have a first on Golden, but I have him in the back end of round 1. Jack Beck
That's
to the
a boomer
Bills,
bust kind of pick.
Jaden Hagan to the Chiefs. Texans get Connerly in round 2. Tyleek Williams to the Panthers. Harold Fanta to the Chargers. Caleb Johnson, Trey Harris to the Seahawks to replace Metcalf. Trey Amos to the Bengals. Some of these are great value picks. Arroyo to the Chiefs. Milroe to the Browns. JT Tuimoloau to the Patriots.
I don't feel that Jim Harbaugh is going to draft.
Yeah, the Patriots. So in Tony's mock, he's got Will Campbell, Walter Nolan, JT Tuimoloau, and Xavier Restrepo to the Patriots. Those are 4 really good picks. I'd be very happy if that was the Patriots' real-life draft. Deion Walker to the Steelers, Quincy Riley to the Bucks, Quinn Ewers to Seattle, Cam Scatebo to the Bengals. That's just unfair. You give Burrow Cam Scatebo, that is just unfair. At that point.
Yeah, for real. That kid is...
Okay, I got Orrin on the line here.
Love the heart.
Orrin, what's going on, man?
What were you saying on your message? I'm sorry.
I said I was doing a live stream with William, and I couldn't attend the. I couldn't get to Andrew right now. I couldn't message him right now.
Oh, okay. No problem.
If you want to talk football with us, you're more than welcome to. But if you're busy or you got other things you need to do, I understand.
Okay, no worries. I'm tired of just finished work. Sorry, guys.
No worries.
No, it's okay. I'll it's okay. Enjoy.
One day soon, bro.
Wait, I got Tony Mario did a mock draft. Can I ask you can I get your input on the Raiders picks really quickly? And I'll
Sure, that I can do it.
All right. Okay, round 1, he gave the Raiders Will Johnson. Corner, Michigan. Round 2, Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, Oregon. Round 3, Trevion Henderson, Ohio State. Round 4, Tez Johnson, Oregon. I got a second on Tez Johnson, so to get him in round 4 at receiver, that's really good value. Round 5, Craig Woodson, safety out of Cal.
I'm not going to remember that after that. So I know there's 3 picks in the sixth round. But let's rehash on grabbing a cornerback in
the first round at 6.
The second on the first round, getting Will Johnson. I do like that pick. You know, it really depends on who's available. If they're not going to go after Genty or Graham or get a quarterback or what have you, then that's moving in the right direction. McMillan's gone and they don't feel that he's worthy of being a wide receiver number one, then I guess you do have to go in that direction. But I just don't think that that's going to be their pick. I don't think they're going to go through to secondary because they did a lot of work in free agency in that department. So I don't think they're going to go get a cornerback in the first round.
That's fair. But Derek Harmon the second, that's really good value if you do decide to take a guy like Will Johnson at 6.
I mean, if you want to get a defensive tackle, they do need work on defensive tackle. That's why my pick in our group mock was Mason Graham, because I just feel that they do need another strong defensive tackle next to Christian Wilkins. That would be a very strong position for them, without a doubt.
Adam Butler did have a signature game against the Browns in week 3, but I really don't feel like he did enough to move the needle. I think you concur with that statement, Orrin, even though the Raiders did bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, you need. There's nothing wrong with having a strong defensive tackle. You know, come in every third down. You know, on one of the ends, because they're not going to play every single down. Those are big bodies, and the better that you have, the better movement that you're going to have up front in the defensive front. That's going to be a real strong defensive front. You know, so that I do like that pick. But you know, it just also again, it depends on who's available in running back right there. And if you want to go, like you said, Tez Johnson, I don't think he's going to be available in the 4th round. I don't think Henderson's going to be available in the 3rd round. I think he's going to be taken in the 2nd round.
But that'd be a great draft if it turned out that way for the Raiders, and they got those 4 players with their first 4 picks.
Again, I'm not too happy with the corner position because that's not going to make them better. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, but they lost Nate Hobbs to the Packers. They did bring in Eric Stokes. They did bring in another safety in free agency, but I feel like they do need that true number 1 corner. I think Stokes is more of a number 2. I liked him coming out of Georgia, but he never showed he could be the number 1 corner. And if that's your number 1 corner and you got him and you got Jack Jones, it feels like you just have 2 really good number 2 corners. But hey, we'll see what happens. Maybe Eric Stokes will turn things around with the Raiders. You never know. The last pick the Raiders made in round 6 was K'Mon Walker. That's a guy I have a 3rd round grade on, and he would be competing for a backup defensive end role with guys like Malcolm Kuntz, Tyree Wilson. He would not be starting. He would be a depth player.
That's the thing. It's like in the 6th round and the 7th round. I mean, the thing is, they have to be very careful. I don't know who we got in the 6th round. You can give me the other 2 picks.
Kobe King out of Penn State at linebacker, and Brandon Crenshaw Dixon in the Florida right tackle. Those were the round 5 picks, round 6 picks, and then Woodson in 5, the Cal safety. So
they're going to wait. They're going to wait till the 7th round to not have a quarterback and not have an offensive tackle.
Yeah, they got Seth Hennigan out of Memphis in round 7. That's just from Tony's mock, and they did not draft a offensive tackle. They are. Yeah.
So that's not going to happen because first of all, they need for sure a depth player in offensive tackle, and they need somebody to learn under Geno Smith. O'Connell is not going to be, starting in any fashion. So I just feel a quarterback's going to come within the first 4 rounds.
I agree, but if the Raiders want to play it safe and make sure Geno's the starter and O'Connell's the backup, and they have no competition for O'Connell, this is the route you go. Because Hennigan would be either a practice squad guy or a third-string QB if you took him in round 7 in that scenario.
Well, that's the thing is I don't think they wouldn't be going to pro days where the quarterbacks are, and they still have been going to pro days where quarterbacks are.
I agree.
So I just feel they're going to get a quarterback within the first 3 rounds, whether people like it or not. They might not get one of the 2 or 3 top quarterbacks. I feel that I got really lucky in our mock draft right now. But they are going to grab a quarterback within the first 4 rounds. Whether it's, Dylan Gabriel, Howard from Ohio State, they're going to grab somebody. It could be somebody under our radar that we don't even know, but they're going to grab a quarterback within the first 4 rounds. I just feel that, and you got to wait. They brought Chip Kelly in for a reason. They brought Geno Smith in for a reason, but he's not the long term. He's not going to be there for 4 or 5 years, Geno Smith.
Yeah. He'll probably be there for 2 or 3 years. I think they gave him a 3-year extension, and this was his last year in Seattle before he got traded. I think they gave him a 3-year extension. I could be wrong on that, Oren.
I didn't hear. I don't think they gave him any extension as of yet.
If that's the case, he will only be with the Raiders for this year, and then they'll move on from him if he has a bad year.
Yeah, they still are hesitant to see. That's why they're going to the pro days. They still may even draft Shedeur Standards if available. People are sleeping on that, but they still may. You guys never know. I mean, that's the case.
Yeah, Tony Mario had Shedeur Sanders dropping all the way to the Steelers at 21. I do not think that will happen. Even if he fell out of the top half for it by some miracle, I think the Browns or Raiders would trade up at that point, like the Bucs did for Josh Freeman in 2009, and grab him at that point in the draft.
Right. I mean, I just don't see him slipping all the way to the Chicago
Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. But yeah.
21. It's like, but the Steelers would jump up with somebody if that were the case. He's not going to get past 15. None of these people who are rumorville or that quarterback's coach said, they're not even making a pick. They are not in charge of making a pick. None of these people are in charge of making a pick. No owner has ever said that. No head coach has said that. No GM has said that. So this is all sleepy rumors, about his tendencies, where you see interviews that are phenomenal. And he hasn't even had his pro day. And if he shines better or just as well as Cam Ward on his pro day, what are everybody going to say? We don't know.
Yeah.
Until it happens.
Agreed.
So that's my take.
Thanks for giving us your take, Oren, taking a few minutes out of your day to talk about the Raiders. We appreciate it.
No problem. Enjoy the show, bro.
Okay,
Thanks.
later.
For sure, man. Later.
That was Oren Sheary. He co-hosts the Utopia Football Insider show with me in the fall. He will be helping us with our draft coverage this year in 3 weeks from now when we have the Draft Utopia NFL Draft Special. But yeah. So that was a great take by Oren. What do you think of that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. The one thing that I have to say is this is a time of year that after, free agency happens, everyone's signed or, and players are signed, waiting on the draft. So many people concentrate on what teams need. I'm a best player available kind of guy. And when best player available and need, end up at the same guy, that is just, someone that you have to take. But I feel that creating the competition is so much better than overdrafting, someone. So I have to throw that in there, and the thing is, what I read, about the Raiders is, Tom Brady has a ton of control over what's happening with that team. And I feel that is one of the only teams that, Shador is likely to hit his ceiling with. And it's because, Brady has that football IQ. And if Shador actually listens to what he says and does, and to that point, he has that chance to hit his ceiling. Otherwise, I feel a lot of these teams like the Browns, they love those asses in the seats. They get themselves, a new quarterback every year or two or so, sell a ton of jerseys, get a ton of hype going. They go out and trade for Deshaun Watson, which was, on the list of the all-time fleecings and in trades, so. But other than that, no, man. Definitely good show. I'm glad he had a chance to call in and talk up
What
his
have
Raiders
we
a bit.
heard with the pro days? I mean, Shador Sanders, Mason Taylor, those are the players used in the thumbnails. But let's dive into some more of the pro days. I've got Kyron Lacey as the Mr. Irrelevant and Tony Mario's mock. I could go over some of these round 7 guys like Marcus Yarns or Jalen Lane, the Iowa State receiver. He put Virginia Tech for Jalen Lane. I'm pretty sure Jalen Lane or Jalen Noel, that's who I'm thinking of. Silly me. Jalen Lane probably is Virginia Tech. Noel is no, I got those two mixed up. I corrected myself. Okay. Relax, audience. I corrected myself. But
Lacey, but as for Lacey, he didn't help himself one bit at his pro day. He ran a 4.640, rather kind of sort of pedestrian 4.43 short shuttle, and I feel after the off season that he's had, or should I say the draft preparation season, whatever, he is, completely gone off the charts and down. There were some other players that stood out in their pro days, like Mike Green, for his size, he had a 4.25 short shuttle, which is like 92nd percentile with that on the position. And although, I feel that Mike Green might be slightly overrated, just slightly,
yeah, I agree. I
not very
think Mike
much,
Green
but
is a little bit overhyped. But
yeah.
I know Wes loves him. I know the Senior Bowl loved him. There's a lot of people that think very highly of him.
Yeah. And Mason Taylor, he had an excellent pro day. This is one thing that, what we've done this season, starting up under the bleachers, I've gravitated away from doing my written projections or evaluations. I don't even call them evaluations anymore, evaluations, because it's what they're worth to the team, and it's kind of one of those things. I feel that is towards the media, but Mason Taylor, he did really well. 6'5", 250, running a 4.6540. He put up 28 reps on the bench. He is strong as hell. 4.52 short shuttle, and I feel he did himself a world of good. But like I was saying, I kind of gravitated away from those written valuations, and tight ends are something, that's the position that I played in high school, and I just have a complete soft spot for him. In fact, that's one thing that I am going to really start getting into in this next draft cycle is tight ends, because not so many people are covering them. And this is one year that I'm definitely probably going to regret, because there are so many good ones. There's Harold Fannin Jr., there's Luke Lachey, there's Colson Loveland, Tyler Warren. It's like, I had 4 first round grades on tight ends 2 years ago. And this year, I feel that I would have had more. I just didn't, end up with the time. And I really feel bad on that because Luke Lachey also, you know, he had a 4.16 short shuttle, which is absolutely unbelievable for his size. You know, I mean, just the agility. He ran a 4.77 40, which didn't help that case, but that you know, short area burst, that short, you know, he's got that way to break open, and I mean, he did himself, you know, pretty well with a number to show someone just what kind of agility he has, you know. So,
yep.
Other than that, you know, I mean, the headlines out there for the pro days and such are so many between the combine and this, and just one of those things. You know, Cam Ward, he probably, you know, definitely solidified himself as the number 1 overall pick to the Titans.
Yeah, I definitely do want to start typing my 7-round mock draft. I probably should be starting it, but like I'm trying to get all my house, get my cards in order, get the OHL draft contents ready for next Friday. The WNBA drafts not this Monday, but it's in 12 days, and then the NFL draft is in 22 days. It'll be in 21 days after tomorrow. Tomorrow will be the 3-week point to the NFL draft.
That's Christmas and
the good
New
news
Year
is,
to us.
The good news is the OHL draft's only 23 picks, and the WNBA draft's only 12 picks. So once I get that finalized, I can just jump straight into the NFL and grind through all 257 write-ups,
right,
and really knock this out.
Sounds good, man. You sound like a busy dude. Can't believe how much stuff you cover, man.
Yep.
It's insane.
And then after April's NFL draft, I get to jump into the NHL and NBA draft cycles. But William will be doing early work on the 2026 draft because there's some people they as soon as the 2025 NFL draft ends, they wait until like the Monday. Some people wait until the Saturday after the draft ends, like after the Mr. Relevant pick ends, and then they jump straight into 2026 with 363 days. But that's too early, I think. Some people take like a vacation, they come back in like May, June, and then they start that cycle, that grind. But I've got a feeling you are going to be a lot more active in that department once the 2025 draft ends.
I usually try to take a week off after the draft because the draft and the end of the draft, that's Christmas and the New Year to me, you know.
I agree, and it takes me like a day or two to grade each pick once we get to rounds 4 through 7. It takes me like a day or two to go through each pick in that round and grade it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm definitely going to be a lot quicker on it now. Before like I said, tried to take a week off, but it was always, you know, like 3 or 4 days in, I would turn in my first paper to Daniel, you know. So other than that, man, let's end the show for tonight. And
yeah, we can end the show for tonight. I mean, the air conditioner. I mean, somebody. I'm watching the floor. It's on mute. Jealous. Somebody didn't know what a Steak and Shack was. A Steak and Shack, the restaurant. They didn't know. They passed on that. You just had to identify the restaurant. Even I know what a Steak and Shack is. I don't go there. I think their food's terrible, but even I know what the logo looks like.
Oh man, now I feel completely like a dumbass. I know there might be one in this town I'm in, but it's really new and I had never seen one before. I might have ate there once.
Yeah, it's not that there have been way more embarrassing contestants than the contestant that didn't know Steak and Shack. There was a contestant that didn't know what the Super Bowl trophy was. There was a contestant that they passed. They saw the Vince Lombardi trophy and they passed on the question. And then there was another person who passed on Steven Tyler. They didn't know who Steven Tyler was.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Fox, I respect the audition process for the floor, but you need to do a better job vetting these contestants. I'm sorry. This is just unacceptable. This is the amount of people missing these questions. This is just not acceptable. There's got to be a stronger vetting process.
Yeah. I remember that. My girlfriend called me once. She was on her way to work, and she's like, "What do they call the Lombardi Trophy? What's the nickname?" I'm still like half asleep. I'm like, "Really?" I'm like, "Tiffany." No, hung up the phone. She freaking calls me at lunch, dude. She won a something. It was like a couple $100 gift card or something. And dude's like, "I'm surprised some chick answered." She's like, "Yeah, I knew just who to call." Perfect. We had gas for like, a month.
Yeah, and some of these questions are just ridiculous. Some of these categories are just ridiculous. There's medicine, there's boy bands, cosplay, change makers, just all these. Medicine's a category. I would pick medicine as a category. Change makers, I don't necessarily agree with change makers. What the heck is a change maker?
No clue, man.
Oh, and the actor from Clerks that wears the hockey jerseys is in this season of The Floor. The actor
Oh man.
Clerks. Not Randall, the guy who criticizes Randall. Dante.
Right.
Dante.
Yeah, there you go. I couldn't remember his name. Dante is definitely.
He's like in second place. He's won over 100,000, and the grand prize winner gets 250,000. He's already won because he won like 20,000 5 weeks in a row, and he split the 20,000 with another contestant. Isn't that insane? That Dante has already won that much money.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
All right.
Fun
But yeah,
stuff.
next week we will have Daniel Kelly on. We will try to get Brandice on in 2 weeks from now if we can. If we can't, it is what it is. She's grinding it out, trying to win a championship for her team.
Yep. They got to have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder now. So
exactly. That's a good
thing.
Can't
wait.
You want to harness that. That's a good thing. 23rd, maybe we'll do a pre-mock draft show. I don't know. Depends on how many picks I get through in my 7-round mock draft. But these next 2-3 weeks are going to be hell. And I got a lot of work I got to do, and I'm going to get back to that. And we'll have the show up on social media ready to promote. But yeah, that was fun, and I appreciated talking with Oren. That was but yeah, we'll have a pro day update and some of the picks and Tony Mario's mock. Not going to go through all of them, but yeah. But that'll be ready to go. All right. See you guys next week with Daniel Kelly of First Round.